It is Thandi Sumazwai coming through with Abenguni. That is how we kick off the show today. And this is really just a short story told of people, of lineage, of all things fabulously African, of legacy, as Thandiswa has come to be known through the work that she produces and puts out there. A beautiful Tuesday afternoon to you. I hope you're having a great day thus far. I mean, listen, on my end, it's been a busy one, and just slowly catching our breath. We've got lots on the agenda for the show today. We are going to be, of course, in conversation with Dr. Judy Pretorius. As you know, this is a feature that we've just introduced on the show. The first and the last Thursday of each month, we'll be talking all things skin health and how to ensure best skin care practices with Dr. Judy, who is a biomedical scientist and product development specialist. We'll get to know her a little bit better as well, because she got to know Bertha, who was hanging out on the show for me last week, and in case you missed that introduction. So we'll get to know a little bit, and then we'll delve into today's conversation, where we're zoning in on skincare and pregnancy. Stages, pages, screens, and more is also coming up in this first hour of the show. The Timbuktu Creative Hub project will be launched in Cape Town, marking a significant milestone in supporting and scaling Africa's creative economy. So we'll get to find out what that entails after 2 o'clock, while still sticking all things health and wellness. We get to continue a conversation that we began 2 weeks ago. Remember, it's been circulating around as to women having babies in their 40s. So we get the medical perspective on that conversation. There was the social element of it that spoke to obviously women being, sort of in different standing in society, the ability to make choices and advocate for their own career trajectory and their futures, and hence perhaps stalling, getting pregnant, etc., etc., etc. But there's also a medical perspective to this conversation, right? So we thought we'd have that conversation with a fertility specialist today. That's coming up after 2 o'clock. And we're going to also look at some of the challenges and perhaps the burdens that come with, for whatever reason, should you have children later on in your 40s, mid-40s, early 50s. There's things that you need to practically consider there from a medical and financial perspective. So we'll have that conversation. All of that and more coming up on the Full Circle. Feel free to chime in. As always, we invite you to do exactly that. WhatsApp is 061-410-4107, and our in-studio call line is 086 000 2032. Let's take a quick pause. We'll be right back.
Bridget Masinga, weekdays on the Full Circle.
It is the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM, as we begin a conversation on what will be a regular feature and appearance by Dr. Judy Pretorius, who is joining us on the first and the last Thursday of each month as we talk all things skin health and how to ensure best care practices. And she's a biomedical scientist and product development specialist with a wealth of experience in the fields of wound healing, regenerative medicine, and cell therapy. All very, very interesting indeed. A master's degree holder, this one, in genetics as well. I mean, what don't you do? How are you, Dr. Judy?
No, I'm fine. Thank you, Bridget. Thank you for boosting my ego on radio. You can see I'm a professional student. I love the academia, and that's how I learned the most. But at least I managed to get out of varsity and out of my mother's wallet. So I did start my own business. So at least I combine academia with making my own money.
Yes, I like that. I like how you put it, out of your mother's wallet. That's a good thing. And I would imagine that when one is a biomedical scientist and also a product development specialist, those two speak to each other beautifully, right? Because we're always talking around products that are formulated with African skins in mind, taking into account our environment, which is vastly different from Europe or the Americas. So it's good to have that kind of academic and professional knowledge doing what you do.
Absolutely. You know, we cannot formulate any product, whether it's a cosmetic product or a pharmaceutical product or even a medical device product, for a particular concern or a disease or a skin tone or type without understanding that fully. And you know, taking skin tones and skin types into consideration, you have to, we call it Fitzpatrick 1 to Fitzpatrick 6, different skin tones and types, and our skin tones and type respond differently to the environment. We can even take it a step further. If you live south of the equator, we are exposed to different UV rays, typically UVB rays, to people who live north of the equator who are exposed more to UVA rays. So where we live in the world also plays a huge role in how our skin responds to the environment.
You see, now, this is why I love about aesthetics and doctors who deal with skin, because you learn something new every day. I didn't know that about the different UVs at different sort of points of the equator where you sit geographically.
Yes, we also like to talk about zones in the world. You know, we have a zone 1, a zone 2, a zone 3 and 4. And that means not only are we exposed to different UV rays, but we also exposed to different humidity, you know. So temperature and humidity plays a role on our skin. If we are exposed into high temperature and humidity conditions, then we're going to have more pigmentation, for one. And we're going to have more enlarged pores, and we perspire more, and our skin's pH is going to be different in comparison to drier zones where we may have less humidity and so forth. And what people don't realize, if you and I spend too much time in front of computer screens and tablets and so forth, this emits blue rays, and just that all in itself can cause premature aging and pigmentation and even certain concerns and conditions like acne formations and so forth. So we have to be very in tune with our environment before we just embark on any sort of skincare routine.
No, absolutely. And, you know, I find it fascinating speaking about that, right? Because I was saying to Dr. Judy off air, please point me to an aesthetics doctor and I am there. I am so there. Poke me and prod me and let's give me beautiful skin. But it's interesting that a lot of people are not aware of the blue light effects. You know, you'll find people that say, I don't spend a lot of time in the sun. And I'm like, well, right now we have house lights, we have camera lights, we have screens on. That's a lot of blue light.
Absolutely, a lot of blue light. And can you imagine one thing? We ladies like to apply a lot of makeup as well.
Yeah.
And makeup typically contains a lot of pigments and talc and titanium and these type of things, which also causes spontaneous oxidative stress, which means if we sit in front of these computer screens and we sit under these lights, it amplifies even more, even double. So we have to be fully aware of things that we do every day that we think, oh no, this is not really going to cause harm. But in actual fact and inherently, it does cause harm, and it leads our skin to age prematurely. And you know, the problem is we grow older. We're going to live longer than our, you know, forefathers lived. So we have to protect our skin. We have to do so much more to make sure that we age gracefully.
I mean, you've just explained so much also about how my Durban skin has taken probably the 2 decades I've been in Joburg for it to acclimate to Gauteng and its weather, because it refused. And on a good day, it still refuses.
Yeah. I mean, many people in Gauteng, you know, complain about eczema, for instance. We also like to refer to it as atopic dermatitis or contact dermatitis. And that's because of the pollution in the air. Remember, we have a very big airport, number one, with aviation fuel and aviation pollution here. We just have a lot of pollution in Gauteng in comparison to other, you know, provinces in the country. And we are highly polluted province as well. So it just gives an indication we are exposed to sulfates, nitrates, phosphates, carbon dioxides, carbon monoxides, and all of these things come into contact with our skin every day. And that's why many people would say, you know what, I live in Gauteng, and every time I go on holiday to visit the coast, my eczema just goes away.
Yes.
You know, and that just goes to show that how much pollution and, yes, of course, stress and these type of things plays on your skin, and how your skin responds to something that's really bad.
Very interesting. We are in conversation with Dr. Judy Pretorius, and she is joining the Full Circle family every first and last Thursday, or Tuesday rather, of the month, when we do our medical focuses. And today we also wanted to touch a little bit on skin and pregnancy. Because if you follow the mummy conversations on social media, you realize that pregnancy, it plays the most on skin, especially melanated skin.
Yes. Well, let me tell you something, because May is also Mother's Day month.
Yes.
And early on, I heard you say, you know, women falling pregnant in their 40s. I'm actually one of those girls, hey? So I actually embarked on an IVF journey.
Yeah.
And I decided to do an embryo transfer with 2 embryos. So I gave birth to twins.
2 twins.
So I'm going to explain a little bit of my own journey. And the first thing that comes to mind is to say, you know, your skin goes through a metamorphosis as a lady. And I can honestly tell you, prior to having babies, my skin was completely different to what it is today. So there's a complete and other change. So people did notice in my first trimester, listen, Dr. Judy, you got that glow. You definitely have that glow. I don't know what it is, but there's a glow for sure. You look happy, you look different. There's new life inside of you. But then when you get to your second trimester, there are things that start to change. And ladies who follow their pregnancy week by week, and I'd like to encourage you to follow your pregnancy week by week, how much changes there are, not only on the outside of your body, but on the inside. And when the placenta starts to form, new hormones come into play, you know, your progesterone specifically. And progesterone increases so much more during pregnancy because it slows down digestion so that there's more food available for the unborn babies. But when progesterone increases, there's a hormone also that starts to increase because of the trauma that's inside a woman's body, and that's called melanin stimulating hormone. And that's just what you mentioned, melanin. But whether it's a lighter skin type or a darker skin type, it doesn't matter. It happens to women, full stop. And then when this melanin stimulating hormone starts to increase, we start to get more pigmentation. Now, we literally get pigmentation everywhere. The first pigmentation that people get is the pigmentation on the tummy. They get this brown line on the tummy.
Yes.
And that line is called the linea nigra line.
The one that divides your body to left and right.
It splits it in 2, hey?
Yes.
So the linea nigra line. But then there's also a type of pigmentation that people get, females get, unfortunately. We call it pregnancy mask, and it's also known as melasma. So there's a very defined complexion indifference, and usually takes place either in the face, the neck, or the chest area. So pregnancy mask, melasma, is one of the things that takes place because of the fact that the melanin stimulating hormone starts to increase during pregnancy. But also because of the fluctuation of the estrogen and particularly progesterone, it stimulates sebum production. So sebum production means that the oiliness of your skin starts to shoot through the roof completely. And that's why many ladies also struggle with pregnancy acne. So they get breakout. Not everybody gets it, but many ladies do get pregnancy acne. And it follows, you know, on the chin line, the jaw line. They can even get acne on the back and on the chest area. So acne is also prominent. And then we have a last thing called pregnancy dermatitis or pregnancy sensitivity. And this can typically happen on the abdomen as the body starts to stretch and stretch, because your skin can stretch twice as much as your normal skin size in elasticity wise, so they can get pregnancy rash or sensitivity. And last but not least is that big bad one, Stretch marks. We hate that one. So a lot of stretch marks can take place. So yeah, unfortunately, you do go through a whole metamorphosis. And yes, that's the bad, but there's at least things that you and I will discuss today, how to prevent it and how to treat it. But this is what one can expect during pregnancy.
Shoot. I mean, and there's so much, I think, to unpack. But I think the one thing that often a lot of women, well, two, the stretch marks, okay, we got all the lotions and the potions on the shelves and some work and some don't, whatevs. But the melasma is the thing, especially black women, that is the one thing I think drops the confidence of every mom during pregnancy.
It's horrible, and I've never met any person who likes melasma. You know, it's not, and it's something that you really just don't want to live with. It's horrible. The complexion indifference is really bad, and it breaks down your self-confidence, unfortunately. But people shouldn't worry that they're going to struggle with it forever. It is unfortunately a long-term problem, that I can say. But once you start incorporating certain ingredients in a skincare routine, and once your baby is born and you want to embark on some of these aesthetic treatment modalities like you've mentioned earlier on, then there are some remedial actions and things that really can play a difference. But I can also, tell our listeners out there that it's not a quick fix. It's not a quick fix, but eventually it will go away.
Listen, we're going to take a quick break here for the headline news, and then we come back on the other side. If you happen to be a preggers mommy, or partner of a preggers mommy, and you've got some skin concerns, feel free to drop us a WhatsApp voice note on 061-410-4107. That's our WhatsApp line, 061-410-4107. Or you can give us a call on 086-000-2032. That's our in-studio call line. And let's see. Maybe Dr. Judy has got some tips of what you can try, ingredients you should be looking out for in your cosmetics routine that can help even in the throes of you being pregnant and your skin and your hormones doing the most. We're going to take a quick pause for the headline news, and then we'll be back on the other side.
Thank you, Bridget. On the news headlines on SAFM, I am Ondi Lambana, and a very good day. Free State MEC for Community Safety, Roads and Transport, Jabu Mbalula, says the 3 police constables whose remains were retrieved from the Hannops River Centurion in Gauteng will be remembered for their dedication and hard work. The DA says the city of Johannesburg is in a state of decay. It cited, among others, malfunctioning traffic lights, potholes, electricity and water supply problems. And former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo has hailed the judiciary as the arm of state that is the most effective in the fight against corruption. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
The Blues and Gold ladies want to treat their clash against the Blue Diamonds like a final exam. They are chasing victory. But the visitors are confident they will prevail and conquer the entire match duration. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness UWC Ladies FC versus JVW Ladies FC on Sunday 11 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Ashraf Gada on SAFM.
Do you get a sense now that the president okayed this because him and his advisors believe that there were attempts made to effectively block any further investigations around not just your father, but many other cases?
The NPA has admitted as such, Ashraf. The former NDPP, Vusi Pikoli, admitted, that there was political interference. The NPA again admitted in the Supreme Court of Appeal. What we need to find out, Ashraf, going forward, is who the individuals were. We need to find out who those sellouts were that prevented the prosecution of our father's killers.
Lukhanyo Kalata, the son of Fort Kalata.
The National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m. Find the podcast at safm.co.za. You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
We're talking skincare for pregnant women with Dr. Judy Pretorius. And she's got all the qualifications in this arena in case that you missed the first half of our conversation. I mean, there's no one more qualified in the world, honestly. We're even talking PhDs in pharmaceutical chemistry here in medicine development and design. And we've sort of started touching on some of the things that could be at play because of your hormones when you are pregnant. And I said during the break that, the melasma part, I see everything else. The melasma really, I think it takes women by shock. You know it's going to happen because you see it happening to other women. You pray it doesn't happen to you. You hope maybe your genetics somehow play a role in you not getting it. And when it does come to those that it does come to,
it's horrible. It's horrible. It's just not nice. Like I've mentioned, I have not met one person who says, you know what, I'm happy with my pigmentation. People hate it, and they're looking for a fix that can work immediately.
But now, what do you do in pregnancy? Because those who dabble in any kind of aesthetics consultation, the first thing once you're pregnant, the minute you realize you're pregnant, your good meaning doctor will say, okay, cheers, bye, I'm going to see you in 9 months.
Yes. And you know what I actually did, and I'm oversharing a little bit, but when I did the IVF treatment, I had to go for more than one round. So my first round, unfortunately, I had what we call a spontaneous miscarriage. Now, then I kind of just blamed myself, and I just wondered, what did I do wrong, because the embryo that was transferred was perfect, so it must be me. And then I tried to work on the rule of elimination to see what out there can cause a spontaneous miscarriage. And it's not necessarily just a miscarriage, but it's really just harmful for a woman when she's pregnant. Like raw foods, for instance. We don't eat raw foods when we're pregnant. So I took what was within my control, and that's the formulation science. And I decided, let me go formulate a skincare range just for pregnant women, or women that at least also embark on an IVF journey and so forth. Then I had a look at ingredients that's great to use during pregnancy. In other words, it's going to focus on ingredients to control acne and pigmentation and sensitive skin and stretch marks and all these things. But I also had a look at things that can be harmful for the unborn child, And then I separated the two, and I decided, okay, if someone like me who's not pregnant now, it's very safe for me to use ingredients today that's good for pigmentation, that prevents pigmentation and so forth, like retinol. But retinol is a vitamin A derivative, is not a good ingredient to use when you are pregnant because it can cause fetal harm, So there are some ingredients that people should stay away from. But now the question is going to be, okay, what can I use during pregnancy? So let's start off with, what's gentle enough? What type of cleansers can I use to wash my face with? And usually we can look at cleansers that contains lactic acid, not salicylic acid, because we don't like salicylic acid during pregnancy, but lactic acid. And for those people who don't know lactic acid, just try to think of Cleopatra who bathed in milk.
Oh, yes.
She actually bathed in lactic acid because it was a nice mild exfoliant for the skin. It removed all the dead skin cells. And if you stimulate cell turnover rates with a mild acid like lactic acid, it is actually going to be safe for your skin and for your baby. So if you start with a nice exfoliant or a cleanser that contains lactic acid, that's a good plus. But now you'd like to use serums and moisturizers and these type of things. So let's see, what can we use with moisturizers and serums? We can use ingredients like hyaluronic acid. Even vitamin C is still okay. Ceramides are
Okay.
definitely a big plus. Vitamin E is definitely a big plus. And if you struggle with a little bit of breakouts, then you can incorporate low concentrations of ingredients like azelaic acid. And one of my favorites during pregnancy, or when you're pregnant, is niacinamide, vitamin B3. So
Okay.
there's a nice hype around it. And don't forget about zinc as
Yes.
well. And then we get to sunscreens as well. Us ladies who are pregnant, we have to understand that sunscreens are very, very important, but typically your mineral-based sunscreens, which is anyways going to work much better if we live south of the equator, like zinc and titanium and these type of things. Very powerful sunscreens and spritzes, that contains all sorts of vitamins and minerals, and even a good collagen drink that you can take in orally would also be fine during the time when you are pregnant, which is healthy. But to stay away from, ingredients to stay away from would definitely be salicylic acid, without a doubt retinol, and then a big one for me, sulfates. No sulfates. And sometimes you get sulfates in cleansers, you get it in certain shampoos and so forth. It's like a foaming agent, a surfactant inside cleansers and shampoos, etc. Rather just stay away from those completely.
I'm going to go back because as the good doctor is talking, I'm trying to think of all the things I've eliminated and some of the things that have stayed. So I'm going to go back and look for those active ingredients. But what I also love about conversations like this is that a lot of the time I remember the first time I went to an aesthetics doctor and they said to me, what do you use for your face? What's your problem? What are your problems? What brings you here? And then what do you use? And I rattled off brands. I use this and I use this. And he stopped me and he was like, stop. I said, what do you use for your face? Meaning, tell me what is in the actual product that you use that is proactive or actively doing what it needs to do for your face. And that was my first light bulb moment to say, unlike diet, we never really turn the bottles around and research the ingredients and know what our face needs, like you've just given us the list, versus what our faces and bodies don't need.
Absolutely, and I can just imagine how overwhelming it must be for end consumers. There are skincare products till infinitum. There are so many skincare products out there. But for me, a basic rule of thumb would be, listen, guys, don't use skincare that contains fragrances or dyes, because this is not healthy for your skin, for sure. Also, don't use skincare ingredients that's going to cause unnecessarily inflammation. And I know I'm going to get hate mail after this, but I'm not a big fan of like a mechanical scrub, for instance, because some people scrub differently, and they cause inflammation. And my thinking behind this, if you cause inflammation, that all on its own is going to lead to premature aging. So just stay away from that. Rather make use of chemical exfoliants. And if I say chemical, there are many people who don't like the word chemical, but I'm saying it with a soft touch. There are certain ingredients or acids out there, like lactic acid, like glycolic acid, like ascorbic acid or vitamin C, that your skin really loves. And your skin is also known as an acid mantle, which tells you it wants to be exposed to ingredients that's more acidic than neutral or alkaline. So if we just incorporate all of these things, your skin will be 100% fine during pregnancy.
Dr. Judy, as we wrap it up, your final takeaway note. I mean, if mom is listening, the two things that she could do today that would make her feel better, whether we're talking food or we're talking skin, that would just make her feel like, okay, I can see the difference or I can feel the difference.
My final message for today is definitely when you're pregnant, have a twice-a-day skincare routine. Look for a cleanser that contains lactic acid and a serum that perhaps contains hyaluronic acid, a good sunscreen for the morning, and a moisturizer that maybe contains shea butter and niacinamide and vitamin E, but use it twice a day. And this is how you can maintain your skin's pH balance. This is how you will control unnecessarily sebum production. And all on its own, if you reduce any form of inflammation, you won't get unnecessary pigmentation or melasma. So a twice-a-day skincare routine would suffice, but just be disciplined. And last but not least, please, I beg all of our pregnant listeners out there, after bathing or showering every single day, apply a tissue oil or a occluding type of moisturizer on the abdomen, even the arms or the upper thighs, because this is preventative measures to make sure that you don't get stretch marks. And can I tell you, I was pregnant with twins. I had a nickname, Dr. Whale, because I look like a whale. And as I'm sitting here now, I don't have one single stretch mark because I was preventative. I had lots of discipline, and I made 100% sure that my skin was occluded with enough moisture to prevent the formation of stretch marks.
From the good doctor's lips to your ears, and hopefully you have a happy, healthy pregnancy. And once you bring that little baby out into the world, your body and your skin just continues to glow. That was Dr. Judy Pretorius. By the way, you're on social media.
I'm on social media, but I think the best way is to find me on biomedicalemporium.com.
There you go. Biomedicalemporium.com is where you can find Dr. Judy if you have any personal questions to ask her and maybe set up an appointment or two. We're going to take a quick pause and then we come back on the other side and we get into stages, pages, screens and more.
Rise and shine every weekday morning on Expresso.
Now, whether it's a motivational Monday or even a health Tuesday, this is the best way to start your day.
Let our trending tech keep you ahead of the curve.
Join us online and vote in our fashion poll.
Elevate your cooking skills every Wednesday.
It's the best and morning entertainment.
So wake up with us.
6 to 9 a.m. on S3.
Cheers.
Bafana want to seal their envelope to East Africa with a paramount victory in front of their home fans. But the Flames plan to double the heat. This is the second leg of the final round of the Total Energies CAF Chan 2025 qualifiers. South Africa tackles Malawi on Sunday, 11 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC+, SABC2 and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Stages, pages, screens and more on The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga.
All right, as we get into stages, pages, screens and more, the United Nations Development Programme in South Africa has partnered with UVU Accelerate, the entrepreneurial development arm of UVU Africa, to lead the ecosystem development for Africa's first dedicated creative tech hub. The Timbuktu Creative Hub project is going to be launched in Cape Town, and it's marking a significant milestone in supporting and scaling Africa's creative economy. We've got Lara Rosemarant joining us now, Head of Entrepreneur Development at UVU Accelerate. How are you doing this afternoon, Lara?
Hello, thank you for having us on your show. Lovely to talk to you.
Only but a pleasure. Okay, let's talk the Timbuktu Creative Hub project. And you're launching this in Cape Town. Give me some background and context.
So really the Timbuktu Creative Hub is Africa's first dedicated creative tech hub. And as you mentioned, it's been established in Cape Town, which we're so incredibly excited about. And it's throughout our partnership with the United Nations Development Plan Program. And really this hub is located at the Homecoming Center in District 6. And it's designed to be a catalyst for growth across multiple creative sectors, including film, music, fashion, gaming, design, animation, and digital arts. So we're going to offer dynamic and inclusive space where all creative entrepreneurs can access cutting-edge infrastructure, digital tools, mentorship, funding pathways, and business support to really help them transform their businesses into scalable, sustainable ventures.
But by way of the Creative Hub, let's talk about the partnership between UNDP and UV Accelerate. How are you guys supporting African creatives, just to ensure that they also turn their talent into sustainable businesses?
So that's a great question, and it's something that we're checking in with ourselves on very, very often. And it's really through a process of cluster development. And this is a proven strategy for driving innovation and attracting investment and creating economic resilience. When businesses, support organizations, governments, academia, and they all come together and focus on a sector in a particular geographic area, they create economies of scale, of shared knowledge, competitive advantage. And this really, really ensures that no single entity could have achieved this alone and creates a really macro perspective. So the hub, it's intentionally designed to function as a creative tech cluster, bringing all stakeholders together across the value chain. And it facilitates collaboration, it amplifies impact, and unlocks opportunities for trade, innovation, and job creation. And this is the partnership that we've now been able to put together.
And this speaks to collaboration and innovation across various industries, right? Because you're pulling together all the creative industries from fashion, gaming, music, film, and so the list goes.
Yes, that's correct. So across all creative industries, we welcome creative talent and ideation phase, build and grow and scale across the value chain. We welcome all creative talent and from across Africa. Even though we are based in Cape Town, as in that's where our home is for now, and we welcome talent from across Africa.
Let's talk about the Homecoming Center, which I know is in District 6. Why specifically have you chosen this site for the hub, and the significance, of course, of this particular location for Cape Town communities and I guess the creative community at large?
Very much so. So the Homecoming Center, for those of you who don't know, was actually formerly known as the Athol Fugard Theatre. And it really is a space rich in cultural, historical significance situated in District 6. An area known for its vibrant artistic past and its painful history of displacement. So the site for us embodied resilience, creativity, and community. And by anchoring Hub there, the project really honors the legacy of cultural expression in District 6. We help to reclaim and revitalize the space for future generations in creative. We're going to be promoting inclusive access and geographic centrally. And it really symbolizes a commitment to equity and empowerment within the creative economy. And we really are envisioning a creative precinct which also encapsulates all the creative businesses around the hub. So think of a wheel with various spokes. So as much as the place, our home, is at Homecoming, we're going to have lots of other satellite spaces with activities and functions all around the precinct.
Oh, very interesting. And I think also that segues us into the kind of impact that you're hoping to achieve with the Timbuktu Creative Hub, especially for Cape Town's economy and the creative sector in Africa, which at the moment is booming and really just cementing itself, its domestic as well as global prominence.
So I think you are spot on. And as UV Accelerate, as you mentioned previously, we are the incubation and entrepreneurship development arm of UV Africa. We've had 25 years experience in the marketplace. And we really took a good hard look to see what is the impact we as UV Africa and as UV Accelerate want to achieve. And it's wide. It's economic growth. So we want to create viable enterprises that generate jobs, which we think is incredibly important. Investment attraction. We want to position Cape Town and this hub for creative tech investment on the continent. Skills development. We want to equip creatives with tools, knowledge, and the networks they need to thrive. We all know how important networks are. And we want to ensure global competitiveness. And we want to develop export-ready products and services that are rooted in African creativity, and we know that there are a myriad of them. And it's a narrative shift, so amplifying African voices and shifting the global perception of Africa from consumer to creator and innovator.
Absolutely.
And that's really what we're wanting to do.
Yeah. Sounds like an incredible partnership and collaborative opportunity for the creative sector. Laura Rosemarin, thank you so much for the time. And Laura is the head of entrepreneur development at UVU Accelerate. A quick one, and then we jump straight into our next conversation with the chair of Y20 South Africa.
My name is Jabu Mahlangu, aka Shuffle the Pack, aka Mwana Swing. I start my day with a short prayer. I give hugs to my kids. And I'm very playful. I love all the genre, but Kwaito is number one. Kwaito is our culture. About the late Mandoza, about the late Mapaputsi, and I could relate. And it's in us focus. Ivory Coast for me, it was a beautiful country. I know Utabanye Batande Zindabu Mauritius Nana. This window is a love. SABC Sport, this is the main one. Wonkela Omanyama channel Azalwe because of SABC.
Catch Jabu Shuffle Mahlangu unpacking the beautiful game in a lingo you love on match days. Live on Latuma. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
Raymond Matlala joins us now, chair of Y20 South Africa, and they officially are going to launch as the youth engagement group as a build-up to the G20 this Thursday, the 8th of May. How are you doing, Raymond?
I'm well, thanks. How are you, Bridget?
I'm fantastic, thank you. So, as the official youth engagement group for G20, Y20 South Africa is going to serve as a platform for dialogue, collaboration, and action. Perhaps give us the importance of convening youth under the banner of the G20 calendar.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for the question, and good afternoon to the listeners at home. Look, it's important. People always say youth is the future, but actually, youth plays a very important role in the current and the future. So, some of the decisions you know around climate change, some of the decisions around AI and the future of work and education will actually affect young people that are today in their respective professions, attending varsities or schools. And those decisions need to be co-created with youth at the table of decision-making processes. So it's important for us as young people to ensure that the voices of youth that incarnate in the future are ahead in the process of decision-making processes.
And the 5 key thematic areas, what will those speak to, and how do those also align with South Africa's G20 presidency agenda?
Yeah, look, we've got the 5 thematic areas which are aligned with the G20 presidents, particularly within the framework of the high-level, 3 high-level deliverables or priorities for South Africa. One of them is inclusive economic development as well as employment. Many of you would know that in South Africa in particular, but also not in South Africa, even in the continent, we're battling with the issue of youth unemployment. And the discussion would be around how do we unlock the potential thereof in terms of getting youth actively participating in the mainstream economies. We also look at AI, digital technology, education, and the future of work. As I've mentioned, those are some of the things that are looking at what does the future looks like. The World Bank report was out late last year, talking about what are the future jobs. And we're going to be looking at some of those things, and as well as looking at ethically how do we govern the issues of AI in today's world. The third one looks into inclusive economic development as well as inequalities. We look at multilateralism as well as science.
Also presuming, Raymond, that not only will young people from the respective G20 participating territories be, be part of the gathering and conversation, but by way of this being Africa's G20, an extension also to incorporate a lot of the other African territories to be a part of this conversation and also to highlight some of their pressing agendas and issues of the day.
No, absolutely. I mean, this is we call it, this is an African G20. It's not just a South African G20. So in that context, we're working with regional bodies in the continent as well as the African Union, and we'll be engaging even some of the civil society organizations that have been in the space throughout the years, such as the PYU, the SAYOF, the EAC, youth councils, and so forth and so on.
Yeah. What are the hopes for sort of tangible action plans or resolutions that speak specifically to young people coming out of the Y20?
Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, it's a very difficult. It has been difficult for Y20 in particular to even find expression in the leaders' declaration. For the past 14 years, this is the 15th year where Y20 is being hosted, the oldest engagement group out of them all. But it has been quite difficult to get the communique, some of the communique featured in the leaders' declaration. But what we're doing this year is we also want to be pragmatic and understanding that there are a number of issues that are being proposed from a government side in the Shepherd track, in the finance track, and the ministerial working groups. What we are doing is we want to propose 3 high-level priorities, which is the establishment of the Y20 International Council, the Alumni Association, and that be the one that find expression in the leaders' declaration as a form of endorsement, so that there can be continuity and an implementation mechanism and monitoring mechanism to ensure that some of those communiques that are submitted to heads of states find expression, but not only that, also lobbying in our local domestic territories.
Awesome. Raymond, we appreciate the time. That was Raymond Matlala, chair of the Y20 South Africa, and they are the youth engagement group of the G20 that's happening in SA. It's the top of the hour, 2 o'clock. It's time for us to get into the news, and then we'll come back on the other side and see what's coming up after 2.
Thank you, Bridget. Top stories at 2-3 First State police officers remembered in a memorial service, and older dementia patients in Korea hold $110.5 billion in assets. For SAFM News, I am Onda Lambana, and a very good day. First State MEC for Community Safety, Roads and Transport, Jabu Mbalula, says the 3 police constables whose remains were retrieved from the Hennops River in Centurion in Gauteng will be remembered for their dedication and hard work. Boipilo Sinoge, Kiamuge Dzwebeis and Kabekulu Linda's remains were retrieved after they went missing on the 23rd of April. Mbalula was speaking at the memorial service for the 3 police officers in Bloemfontein.
They were really committed to their work. As we know, they were on their way. 2 of them were deployed in one of the critical programs that we are fighting, Valamgoti, in Limpopo province. So it's a great loss. We are here today. There are those things in life that we can't change. We are here today to pay tribute to the 3 members of the South African Police Service.
The DA says the city of Johannesburg is in a state of decay. It cited, among others, malfunctioning traffic lights, potholes, electricity and water supply problems. The DA's Johannesburg caucus briefed the media in Johannesburg on what it believes is the true state of the city. This comes as Johannesburg Mayor Councillor Data Morero prepares to deliver the State of the City address in Braamfontein tomorrow. DA Johannesburg caucus leader Belinda Kaiser echoes on Joku.
The state of Johannesburg's infrastructure paints a stark picture of neglect. Potholes scar the roads, broken traffic lights endanger lives of motorists, hijacked buildings fester in neglect, piles of litter tarnish our streets, colleagues, and illegal electricity connections drain the city's resources. These are not mere inconveniences, but symptoms of a deeper failure of leadership that to prioritize basic services and basic service delivery that we so desperately need.
Former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo has hailed the judiciary as the arm of state that is the most effective in the fight against corruption. He was delivering the keynote address on the second day of the 15th Commonwealth Regional Conference for Heads of Anti-Corruption Agencies in Africa. The 4-day event is taking place in Cape Town. Zondo chaired the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture from 2018 to 2022. He says the judiciary has played a meaningful role in combating corruption.
You will know that the judiciary is the only arm of state where its members can be kicked out when they've done wrong. It's difficult to find such examples in the executive. It's difficult to find such examples in parliament. Very often, people who are facing serious allegations, both in the executive and in parliament, are just shifted around or just given a slap in the wrist.
A police crime scene analyst has testified in the reopened inquest into the death of ANC leader Nkosi Albert Lutuli that the version of the driver of the train that allegedly hit him is highly unlikely. The inquest is underway in the Pietermaritzburg High Court. The first inquest in 1967 heard that the train driver saw Lutuli walking along the railway track towards the oncoming locomotive. Lutuli's family believes he was murdered. Brandon Burgess was part of a team that reconstructed the crash scene using evidence from the first inquest. He had this to say about the statement by train driver Stephanus Albertus Leitghan.
The possibility of an accident scenario occurring as described by Mr. Leitghan is highly unlikely. Taking into account the stopping distance required to stop the locomotive where it came to rest at the scene, that is a minimum of 767 meters. The brakes to the train would have to have been applied at least 170 meters before the entrance to the northern side of the bridge. However, for the train to have stopped where it did, the speed of the train would have to have been below 20 kilometers an hour. The probability of the point of impact being on the southern side of the bridge is highly unlikely.
A government study in South Korea has revealed a significant part of the country's wealth is held by elderly people with dementia. Researchers say they accounted for assets totaling more than $110 billion, or more than 6% of the entire economy. The South Korean authorities want to balance the protection of people with dementia from fraud with concerns that such wealth could be used more productively. Recapping the top story, Free State MEC for Community Safety, Roads and Transport, Jabu Mbalula, says the 3 police constables whose remains were retrieved from the Hinops River in Centurion in Gauteng will be remembered for their dedication and hard work. I am Mondela for SFM News Headlines at 2:30.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. You are listening to The Full Circle. SAFM.
I've been trying to call. I've been on my own for long enough. Maybe you can show me how. just a touch, baby. I look around, see the city's cold and empty. No one's around to judge me. I can see clearly when you're gone. I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. I said, ooh, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I just, hey, hey, hey. I'm running out of time, 'cause I can see the sun light up the sky. So I hit the road in overdrive, baby. Oh, the city's cold and empty. No one's around to judge me. I can see clearly when you're gone. And I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. I said, ooh, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I just. I'm just coming back to let you know I can never say it on the phone. They'll never let you go this time. I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. Hey, hey, I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch.
The song reminds me, and not the song, but that lyrics. Oh, I'm blinded by the light, and I can sleep until I feel your touch. There is a song, another pop song, that has a very similar lyric. There is. There really, really is another one. And I know it's on my phone playlist. Anyway, it's Blinding Lights. This comes from singer-songwriter The Weeknd. And this was from his fourth studio album, After Hours. A lot of people say that he suffered the curse of changing his hairdo, which took his creativity. That is just what they say. That is not what I say. That is what they say. That is The Weeknd coming through with Blinding Lights, a beautiful song. A little bit of an upbeat number for us to kick off 2 o'clock. It's just gone 10 past 2 on The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM, leading the conversations that move the nation on this fine Tuesday. We are going to have a continuation of a conversation that we started 2 weeks ago. There was a sort of social media banner that was roaming around with the heading, "More women having babies in their 40s." And we had that conversation with the professor at Wits, if I'm not mistaken, just around some of the social dynamics that have led to women having babies a little bit later on in life. And then we thought, well, we'd extend the conversation and look at the medical perspective of women having babies in their 40s and beyond, perhaps understanding what some of the data tells us here and what are also some of the implications to this conversation. And we've got Dr. Johannes van Waart joining us for this one. But we're going to take a quick pause and then we come back on the other side. So if you do have a vested interest in, perhaps prolonging, starting your family after 40, and you just want to get an idea of, from a medical perspective and a fertility perspective, what could be some of the implications there for you, this is definitely the conversation.
Mara, why? Why is the boss of breaking down spreadsheets now on the side of the road breaking down in a broken down car? Mara, why? Why aren't you insured with Santam, the leading short-term insurer that gives you emergency roadside assistance and home drive services when you need them most? To switch, call 0860 444 444 or SMS cover to 36101. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
When leaders need to account, we call on them. When society needs to debate, reflect, and advance, we're here to have the conversation. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 12 midnight.
Bridget Masinga, weekdays on The Full Circle.
All right, let's get into this conversation. We're looking at women having babies in their 40s and beyond, and we're looking at it from a medical perspective, trying to understand what the data trends are telling us here, what the implications are here, and we're joined by fertility specialist Dr. Johannes van Awaart, who is a specialist in all things fertility. How are you doing this afternoon?
Bridget, hi, thank you very much, and it's a great privilege to speak to you. So, welcome from a nice and warm, sunny Stellenbosch, and it's a big privilege to speak to you and your listeners today.
Showing off with the weather of Stellies, hey? I love it. So we had a conversation around this, right? Because there was a sort of social media poster that was flying around out of context, which sparked a conversation headed women having babies in their 40s and beyond. And we had a conversation, a discussion with a psychologist where we explored just the societal and emotional aspects of women having babies in their 40s and beyond. And then we thought, let's take it one step deeper as well, and also just tag on that the medical data and what that is telling us about women and maybe some of the issues that are also being faced by women. And I think that's where we can start today, Dr. Johannes, is, what is the data telling us? Because we understand the conversation from the perspective of women are delaying having children because, life is where it's at right now, and we have a vastitude of choice of how we sort of govern our lives. But there's also medical data that one has come across that also says, in fact, there's also some signs of some fertility issues at play that speak to why more women and families are starting later.
Yes, no, thank you very much. And I think the reason why I'm really happy to speak to you today is all about fertility awareness. And I think the one misconception is because I think women at the moment, because of lifestyle and circumstances, when they get to 40, they still feel 30. But unfortunately, the ovaries, which are the factories of the eggs, haven't kept up to pace with that, and they are still 40. And I think we know that the fertility rate worldwide is dropping, and some countries are really in trouble. I just come back from the International Fertility Society meeting in Japan, and in order to sustain your population, you need a fertility or a pregnancy rate of 2.1 per couple. So every mother and father should have 2.1 children to stabilize actually the population. And in Japan at the moment it's 0.6. So they are really declining, and there's no way you can turn that back. So I think, and it's a reason because people are focusing on their careers, there are more challenges, life is getting tougher, and people don't want to have children, that many children, or they miss the boat. And I think that's what it's all about. There are definitely some good advantages in the reproductive technology, but yet it can only go so far. But there are definitely some options available, like egg freezing, embryo freezing. We can even test embryos, because I think, to put it in context, when a woman gets to 40, an average of 3 out of every 4 eggs that they make will be abnormal. So you have a 1 in 4 chance of falling pregnant, and if you believe statistics, you have a chance every 4th month to fall pregnant. And if that fallopian tube misses the egg and doesn't pick it up, theoretically you wait another 4 months. And by that time, a number of months. In practice, it doesn't really work that way, but I think
Yes.
that's more or less what we have to keep in mind.
Yeah. I mean, we've just had, our previous guest who's well-respected PhD, medical doctor, biochemist, researcher, all things under the sun, who's also in her 40s, also having gone through IVF, struggled to conceive. And this is the recurring story that I hear now, and I think it also speaks to what you've just said, that because of everything lifestyle adjacent, we move as though Jay-Z, the rapper, once said, 30's the new 20 and I'm so hot. But in reality, the physics of your body, the biology of your body, once it hits certain marks, does it not regress faster, especially where women are concerned?
Yes, there's no doubt in my mind. I think what we try to do is if patients are thinking of delaying family, then what they should do is go and speak to a fertility specialist. Let them do the tests that are needed to see what your total egg count is. Talk to you about the chances of falling pregnant, taking the age into consideration, because that's probably the most limiting factor. Because as you get older, your number of eggs not only decrease, but the percentage of normal eggs also decrease. So what you do is you get it from both sides. And I think it's very good to have that information to be able to make an informed choice. But not only that, it's very often a question we pose is how many children do you want? Because the family dynamics of having a one-child family against more than one-child family is completely different. And in many cases, we can help patients to have one baby, but to have another baby thereafter, after another 2 years have passed, becomes a real big struggle. And I think to get the information is probably the right way to go.
There's this misconception, Doc, and I want to get to also the disadvantages, perhaps, of having pregnancies at advanced maternal ages, because they are. We have this. We've positioned IVF and fertility treatments like the miracle to having children, and there's great technological advancements, obviously, in medicine. But we also need to be realistic about just how far IVF and fertility treatments can go. Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you can only work with what my body is providing you at that time. There's no sort of miracle laboratory where you can go over and above to make my body produce eggs that it doesn't have, for instance.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I think we can work. We can control for human factors. So we cannot make patients more fertile. We can enhance the environment in which those eggs and the sperm gets produced by having a good lifestyle, not smoke, not vape, not being excessively overweight, doing some exercise. That we can control, but we cannot control the genetics. We can test the genetics. That's possible that we can test embryos to see whether they are normal or not, and that comes with advantages and disadvantages. But to have children at a more advanced age does have small risks, but the biggest risk is to get those patients to fall pregnant. Now, the chances of chromosomal abnormalities are definitely bigger if you're older. And if you are older, your chance of developing medical conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, and things like that certainly also plays a role, which does not really have a direct impact on the pregnancy. But if a mother's life is in danger because of high blood pressure or diabetes, sometimes we have to deliver those babies earlier, and that has a big impact on the health of the newborn, because it makes a big difference whether the baby is born at term or whether it's born at 30 weeks, for example. And sometimes if the mother's health dictates that the baby needs to come out earlier, that baby has no say in that process, and that will definitely be to the disadvantage. So I think having babies at older ages, if the pregnancy goes well, it's sometimes also the advantage that older mothers are a little bit wiser, so they don't get involved in nonsense and give their babies a happy life and are more patient and help them a little bit better. But it does come at a price, and the price is that you take that risk in pregnancy of delivering earlier, and you might, even if the luck is against you, not be able to fall pregnant because you've waited too long.
That speaks to the impact of age on fertility, and I know you alluded to it slightly there, but if we can touch on that a little bit as well. The realistic impact of age on fertility, and even some of the challenges that someone who does what you do as a fertility specialist could encounter, with some of your patients.
Yes, I think to put it into context, there are some options available that definitely wasn't available a number of years ago.
Yeah.
So the younger the eggs, the better the chances of giving you a baby. So the patients who are not in a relationship because they're really chasing a professional career and know they have to make their moves now can freeze their eggs. And a 35-year egg will definitely give you a much better chance of giving you a pregnancy than a 40-year-old egg. So we would definitely advise patients, if you consider freezing eggs, do that as early as possible and ideally before age 36. It's even better to freeze embryos. So if you have met your partner that you want to have a family with, remember, an egg that looks normal has a chance of being normal. That doesn't guarantee you a baby. But if you make the embryo, it has run part of that race already, and you can put a prognosis to an embryo. So you have a much better idea whether you'll have success if you have an embryo. And on average, for every 3 to 4 eggs that you have, you will get one embryo. So one egg does not equal one baby. And I think then you can delay your pregnancy to when you want to fall pregnant, but its genetics hasn't changed, and the potential of that embryo to give you a pregnancy is just as good as the day that you freeze that embryo. So that gives us definitely some different perspective to trying to fall pregnant. And I think that's probably something that if women want to delay pregnancy, that one should consider very seriously and speak to one of your local fertility specialists about these processes.
Absolutely. And by way of, being over 40, because I know in our short time, we can't run through all of the data of what happens biologically to a woman and how things sort of accelerate at, this percentage and that percentage. But if you've ever been in front of an IVF specialist, I mean, I've shared little nuggets here and there of my journey, having been in front of a fertility specialist. Sometimes when they sort of do all those pre-tests to get the data on you, it can be shocking just how much your body is either stagnated or how much it's regressing. But that doesn't also mean that you're not going to be successful in your journey. It just means there are things that need to be counted for at particular points of age per woman.
Yes, but you are absolutely perfectly right. And I think that's what you must remember. A fertility specialist is a gynecologist that's specialized already, and then you specialize another 2 years full-time to become a fertility specialist. So we understand the physiology and the endocrinology of the female body quite well.
Yeah.
And we do individualize, because some women at an older age are more fertile than other ones at a younger age.
True.
And you have to individualize, and the whole process of falling pregnant has got 3 parts to this. The scientific part, which is something that we cannot change, but we know it quite well. The psychological part is probably the most difficult, because it's not nice to hear that you're going to struggle, you are going to go through a process like IVF, when other people fall pregnant just around the corner every second day. And then the last part, obviously the financial part, but that's something that will be discussed in that conversation.
Yeah.
But I think my message would be is, if you have any doubts, rather go and see a specialist who can give you the information, and you can make a very well-informed choice if you have enough information for your specific needs and what you need to do. And I think that's the best that you can probably do, and the listeners can do when they're out there. And the other thing which is also very critical, I think in our game, nothing beats lifestyle. If you're a smoker, your chances are 3 times less to fall pregnant than with those people who don't smoke.
Yeah.
So just do the right things. And what we all should do, we know all what the right things are to do. Don't look after your body, and your body will look after you, but get individual information, and then you'll be able to make an informed choice.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more, Dr. Johannes. Every time I see those headlines where people go, well, this celebrity and this celebrity gave birth at 50 and at 46. And I was like, you cannot gauge your journey on someone else's circumstance that you don't even know. Go get your own data and make choices based on what your doctors are telling you. And even those choices cannot be 100% guaranteed, but you are informed at the very least. Let's also touch a little bit on perhaps some of the health implications. And you spoke about, for instance, older mothers who may have to deliver preterm, and some of the implications that could have on a premature baby.
Yes, I think a pregnancy is very often also connected to lifestyle. So if you are reasonably fit and you are looking after yourself and you've got good general health parameters, your chances of having a successful pregnancy is definitely much better.
Yeah.
And you must start with that preconceptually. So that's part of the discussion if you want to have a baby, that you must do all the right things, do the little bit of supplements that you probably need, and to get your body ready for this journey. Most of it is coupled to blood vessel health. And if you get older, your blood vessels do get a little bit more shaky. And if you develop high blood pressure or diabetes and your baby has to be delivered earlier, in many cases, those are factors that one can mitigate or even prevent if you have a good lifestyle and have a good pregnancy. But I think when you're older, definitely some risks. What you want to do is let your risks count against your baby, and the ideal would be that you get to term, and I think that's the best that mothers, potential mothers, should do. Look after your lifestyle. Don't be scared to fall pregnant after 40. The biggest risk that you might not fall pregnant because you actually waited too long, and I think that's the one standout. For all the other factors, we can almost test and manage it as you go along and prolong the pregnancy as long as everybody is safe. But that means you're going to have to good specialist care in that pregnancy.
Absolutely. We didn't get to the third perspective of this, which would be the financial implications, because what a wow, IVF can be a costly game. And that's just the reality of the science. It's a costly science. And more often than not, the women that I've encountered have had to go through more than one cycle or more than two cycles, unfortunately.
Yes, no, you're perfectly right. I think, but you must also see that in context. Very often if people would buy a car, you know what the price of cars are. If you want to buy a decent middle-sized car, you pay 400,000 or 500,000 rand for that. Now, if you go through IVF, probably a cycle will cost you about 100,000 rand. So potentially, if you have to make the decision to have a baby or have a new car, which is the one that's going to give you the most pleasure in the long run? So although it is very expensive, there is no doubt in my mind, but that's technology, and that's very expensive. So you have to see that in context and say, what am I happy to sacrifice?
Yeah.
Because I said we can control for human factors. We cannot change genetics. We can try our very best. Unfortunately, in our world, we have more smiles than tears, but we do also have tears. And then you have to understand that and guide the patients appropriately. But the key is information.
Absolutely. Dr. Johannes van Wart, thank you so much for the time. Dr. Johannes is a fertility specialist in Stellenbosch. So if you happen to be around those necks of the woods, he would be one of the guys to see. It's just gone 2:30. Ondela standing by with the news headlines, and then we'll come back and get into a Kids Corner.
Thank you, Bridget. On the news headlines, Free State MEC for Community Safety, Roads and Transport, Jabu Mbalula, says the 3 police constables whose remains were retrieved from the Hinabs River in Centurion in Gauteng will be remembered for their dedication and hard work. The Community Safety Portfolio Committee in Gauteng Legislature has expressed concern over the suspension of more than 380 Ekurhuleni Metro Police officers, and border management officials from various countries across Africa are meeting in Cape Town to discuss the future of border security on the continent during the Africa Border Security Week. A full update for those at the top of the hour.
This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
My name is Natemba. I am 10 years old. No, I don't feel comfortable raising my hand in class when I don't understand. I don't feel comfortable because the teacher might roast me or the learners might laugh at me. It is important so that you don't make silly mistakes. I think they should punish those who laugh at others for asking a question in class.
Greetings, my name is Praise Ziba. When we are in class and it is about to answer questions, I feel very comfortable raising up my hand, even though I don't understand something, or even if I'm not sure about my answer, because I think it will help me gain confidence. And if the answer is wrong, my teacher always tells me that there's no wrong answer. So whenever we say an answer and if it's incorrect, they first check it out, and then if it's not correct, they tell us to try again. But the thing that I think is important to ask is that if you're not familiar about something, or if you're unsure, it's important to ask for you to understand better. And the thing that should be done to those who laugh at others, one day they should just give them a question that they should answer and see if they're good at it or what. And making a mistake in class is actually not a bad thing, because at school we are at school to learn and not actually laugh at each other, because we're all trying out something.
Hi, my name is Arhan Ahmed and I am 11 years old. Sometimes I feel shy to raise up my hand in class, but I try. Asking for help is important so we can understand better. If someone laughs at others, it can hurt their feelings. We should always be kind and support friends when they are learning something new or asking questions.
Hi, my name is Danica Wood. I don't really feel comfortable raising my hand in certain classes because the teachers are like strict, and sometimes the teachers will like shout at you because they'll be like, oh, you're asking a dumb question or something like that. But I really don't like having attention on me, so raising my hand in class is like brings lots of attention to me. I think it's very important for someone to ask for help when you're unsure, because sometimes, let's say for example, you're doing an assignment in class and you're unsure of what to do, but you're too scared to ask, so then you're going to end up doing it wrong, and then it's just going to be this whole big thing, because then your marks are going to drop because you got that part wrong because you were too scared to ask because you're unsure. People that laugh at others in class for asking a question or making a mistake, I feel like they should be reprimanded, because everybody makes mistakes, and just because someone doesn't understand something that you understand doesn't mean that you should belittle them or make them feel smaller than you. They might just maybe be like unsure, maybe they have the answer but they're just unsure and they just want to double check. And mistakes are part of growing up, and I feel like that's something that not a lot of people understand. Thank you.
My name is Lorraine Moyo. Yes, I do raise my hand up when I need to know something. For example, in maths I couldn't understand how to multiply and divide decimals, and I asked my maths teacher. I fully understood how to do it from then on. The reason I raise my hand up is because I want to understand, and I think children should do it more often because it helps them understand things. Yes, there are some people who laugh at others when they ask questions, The same thing happened to me once, but I won't say because this recording will be too long. What I think of this behavior is it's unacceptable because it makes people sad. Actually, it's a part of bullying others, and that's just not right.
Hello friends and happy Tuesday! Let's talk about something super important when it comes to learning, asking questions in class. Do you feel comfortable raising your hand when you don't understand something? Some kids say yes and some say no, and that's okay. It can feel a little scary sometimes. You might worry that your question is silly or that someone might laugh. But guess what? There's no such a thing as a silly question when you're trying to learn. Asking for help shows that you care about understanding, and that's how you grow. Every time you ask a question, you're not just helping yourself. You might be helping others too, because chances are someone else is wondering the same thing. Now, what about those who laugh at others for asking questions or making mistakes? That's not okay. In a kind and respectful class, everyone should feel safe to speak up and learn. If someone laughs, you should gently remind them that learning is about trying, making mistakes, and asking questions. That's how we all get better. So don't be afraid to raise your hand even when you're unsure. Be proud of yourself for being brave enough to ask. And remember, every great thinker, scientist, and leader started by asking a question. Until next time, keep learning, keep asking, and keep being kind. See you next time!
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
He's short, loud, and definitely not a licensed therapist, but he's asking the hard questions. It's Heart to Heart with Kevin, the only talk show where the guests spill the tea and Kevin spills the jokes. Real talk, real laughs, and real short host. Heart to Heart with Kevin, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on S3.
The Blues and Gold ladies want to treat their clash against the Blue Diamonds like a final exam. They are chasing victory. But the visitors are confident they will prevail and conquer the entire match duration. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness UWC Ladies FC versus JBW Ladies FC on Sunday 11 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Ashraf Gada on SAFM.
People mobilize in a way outside of party politics, as they have done around, let's say, the UDF, for example, that the politicians of the day today won't allow it. It is against their vested interest to see mass mobilization of civil society.
Why do we need the permission of politicians? We are not married to these politicians. They are there to serve us. It's public taxpayers' money that pays them. And it's taxpayers' money that creates the economic infrastructure that make businesses succeed. So business leaders can't go and claim that they on their own made their billions. This is the thing, the irony of it. At the end of the day, we all contribute with the road infrastructure, the education infrastructure, the health infrastructure. This is taxpayers' money.
Jay Naidu, former part of the Mandela era leadership of the country.
The National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m. Find the podcast at safm.co.za. You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
All right, in our final moments, we are going to be chatting to Dr. Grace Ayensudankwa, who is with the doc. Is it the Bohesi? I don't want to butcher it.
It's Borghese. Borghese. It's an Italian name.
Borghese, Roma's skin expert and fellow of the American College of Surgeons. I mean, now I'm curious to know the context of being a Borghese Roma skin expert.
Thank you, and thank you to your audience, and thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.
Dr. Grace Ayansu Dankwa. I am a Borghese skin expert. Basically, Borghese is a legacy of Italian skincare and beauty. It's been trusted since 1957 to deliver spa-inspired treatments driven by modern day science. That's where I come in. I am the skin expert that brings in the modern day science so that our products are rooted in modern day science.
Ah, okay. Makes sense. Makes sense indeed. Because obviously the skin, like every other living organ, also goes through its own, I would presume, its own sort of metamorphosis and evolution as times move on.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'm a skin expert. I'm actually a burn and reconstructive surgeon. So basically, I deal with skin when people are burned and also plastic surgery. And my job is to make sure that the skin looks as natural as possible, even after an injury, like a burn.
Absolutely. And by way of, let's talk maybe about some of the misconceptions, right? The most common misconceptions that folks have around burn injuries, and maybe couple that with the different burn degrees and what those misconceptions speak to with the various burn degrees.
Thank you. Most people feel like once you have a burn, you end up with a scar or you end up with a disability. That is common in Africa and the rest of the developing world, but it is not necessarily true. So I'm here to let people know that it is just a misconception. You can have a burn and still end up, even a deep burn, and still end up with no scar and no disability. So that's a reassurance. There's different types of burn, and there's layers of the skin. We go from the epidermis, which is the outer layer, to the deep layer, which is the dermis, and then we have the fat underneath the skin. From there, we have the muscle covering, which we call the fascia, and then after that, you get the muscle and the bone. That's from the outside to the inside in terms of the layers of the skin. So when we say superficial burn, that means it's burning just the epidermis, the top layer, the superficial burn. Then as it keeps going deeper, we classify the burn by the depth of injury. So we have a partial thickness that goes deeper than the full thickness, and the fourth degree burn is the one that has charred through the whole entire layers of the skin and maybe even through the muscle.
Sure. All right. So I know that from a South African context, in SA, burns, we see around probably 30 plus patients that sustain moderate to major burn injuries. This is on a monthly in South Africa. But we also see injuries that are very prevalent in young people between ages 7 to 15. And that runs into the thousands of children annually that sustain burns. Talk to us as well about just the most common burns for children, perhaps, and what does recovery look like for them versus maybe what a recovery would look like for an adult. I don't know if skin is continuing to regenerate in your youth, and so maybe recovery is a bit different.
Thank you. Most burns in the children that age is called thermal burn, basically from hot liquids or flame or touching like a hot iron. Those are all thermal burns. And then the next one is basically chemical burns, because remember that at home we usually keep the detergent and the acidic stuff, the cleaners, underneath the kitchen cabinet, and it's closer to the level where a little child can pick up and ingest it. So those are the common burns that we get from kids. But one of the ways to prevent it is to really child-proof the house. And child-proofing, oftentimes when we have little kids, we child-proof from like falls and we kind of the cabinetry and things. But one thing we forget is child-proofing the house from injury, from burn. from the stove, from where the hot liquid is, from where the iron is located, moving the detergents and the cleaning solutions to a higher level where it's out of the reach of little children. So those are some of the things we have to be cognizant of. And of course, we have to make sure that there's always somebody supervising the kids, because oftentimes these are accidents that the kid does not know. They don't know the iron was plugged in.
Yeah.
They don't know that the hot water is like over boiling temperature. They don't know a lot of those things. And so these oftentimes happen to be just freak accidents that happens. However, if not treated properly, we end up with disability, as well as a lot of morbidity and maybe even mortality.
Is recovery for kids does it provide a better outlook for children?
Thank you. The general principle is that, of course, children have newer skin and they're growing, and so they heal faster than, of course, an adult. However, once the skin is burned, depending on the degree of injury, it is the same type of skin. And all skin, whether it's adults or children, regenerate itself every 14 days or so. So, even though the kids have a better ability to heal, so that you can have a child that had maybe a thicker or deeper degree of injury, but might end up healing completely without any scarification. So it just depends. Yeah, we just have to make sure that the burn is treated properly.
Yeah.
So what I tell my patients basically, or my clients, is that one, you childproof the house. Two, when you have a burn, the first thing you do is to, if it's your finger or whatever, you stick it under room temperature water. So you run water over it. That is just to cool it down, and also to prevent deeper penetration of that said injury, and also control the pain. So the first thing you do is you run it under running water. Then after you do that, you find a gauze, and then you kind of moisturize it with water, and you wrap the area around it. That would decrease the pain level and also decrease the deeper penetration. So that's the first order of business. Now the next thing is whether you go to the hospital or you try to treat it at home. Where people make mistakes is they often cannot tell the depth of injury, and they choose to take care of it at home. I say that if it's a child and if it's over 5 to 10%, 20% of the body burn, I think that you definitely need to take it to medical attention.
Absolutely. And you know, I can't sort of have you reiterate enough that running the burn under room temperature water, because and I don't know, the old wives' tales, especially growing up as black and brown people, you know, even if you get that small burn from the pot or the iron, grandma will always put butter on it, like, you know, rub a little bit of margarine, rub a little bit of butter, and is that a good thing or a bad thing?
In Ghana, it's like you put a little bit of salt.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of old wives' tale on what you do. But the first thing is to stop the injury or stop the deeper penetration, because the morbidity comes in how deep the burn is. So first order of business is cool it down. And when I say cool it down, please do not use ice, because ice can burn just as much as heat can burn. That is why people can get frostbite. Frostbite is from ice. So just make sure you don't stick your hand in the refrigerator. You don't put ice on it. Just literally run it under room temperature water to cool it down and to prevent the deeper injury. Once you do that, the next step is you evaluate it. If there's a blister, how deep is the blister? How big is the blister? And then you make a decision whether you take it to the hospital for care or you treat it at home. If you choose to treat it at home, then you need to really monitor it. Because if the blister is getting bigger, if it's starting to look pink, if it's starting to look infected, that is one thing you do not want. So just keep a close eye on it if that's the decision you make, and make sure that you just keep an eye on it. If it's not healing in the next 24 to 48 hours, then definitely that means it's a much deeper burn and you need to present to a hospital.
And this first step of sort of cooling it down and almost washing it off, perhaps, I'm wondering, because my question is, running it under cool water, room temperature water, would be applicable in both the thermal and the chemical burns?
It's the chemical burn normally if it's on the skin, but normally when we say chemical burns, it's something they have ingested.
Okay.
So they drink the cleaning detergent that is a basic or is a base, or they drink the bleach that is an acid. It all depends. Acid or base. So it all depends. If it's ingested, you definitely need to go to a hospital because once it's ingested, now you're going to have the burn internally. So you will not see the level of burn until you get to the hospital.
Yeah.
So anything a child ingests, that is not a home, let's take care of it at home option. That is straight to the hospital. Even if it's nothing, if the hospital does the work and said, oh, there's no injury, it's better to get that medical attention than it is to assume that, oh, whatever happens at home. So any type of injection, that is definitely hospital. When I say to treat at home, it depends. That's like a burn to the skin that is visible, that you can see. Those are the ones that maybe people would choose to treat at home. But in Africa and this part of the world, sometimes even the access to the care is prohibitive. So if I have to drive so far to the hospital, then perhaps we'd choose to treat it at home. Or if we have this old wives' tale of put salt or put butter or put Vaseline, whatever it is the family has done in the past, we tend to do that and not remember to take it to the hospital.
Absolutely. And some of those old wives' tale, I can imagine, are not necessarily good for treating skin burns.
Thank you. Some of them actually will add to the depth of injury. Some of them will actually cause further injury and burn the skin some more. So, and then also might lead to infection. So, just cool it down. Make sure you stop the deeper penetration. Wrap it with a moist gauze or a moist piece of cloth. And then continue to evaluate it. If you choose to treat it at home, then make sure that you're monitoring it. Monitoring is everything, because what you don't want is an infection. If there's certain areas that when it's burned, you definitely have to go to the doctor's office. Basically, if it's the genital area, if it's around a joint, if it's the face, and also we measure burn by percentage of total body surface area burnt.
Yeah.
So if you use your finger and it's more than, maybe we say that the rules of 9, so that the entire head is a 9. If the burn is on the entire head around a 9 or the face, then you definitely have to go to medical care. And especially the fingers is one thing people forget, because what you don't want is disability. Once you have your fingers are disabled or you have any sort of disability, it can lead to a lot of long-term consequences. You may not be able to write. You may not be able to hold a pen. You may not be able to hold a spoon. So it has a lot of activities of daily living implications.
Yeah.
So in certain areas like the finger, the face, the genitals, and then also the percentage of burn, those are like recommendations that we say go directly to the hospital. Let the doctor tell you it's not deep enough, or let the doctor tell you it's not big enough, but don't overthink it.
Yeah. Given the context of both of us being Africans and on this continent, I know that almost 90% of burns occur in low and middle income countries. South Africa not being exempt from being part of that stat. What is it that makes it such a significant public health concern for our communities? Context of rural living, urban populations, lack of resource. What is it that speaks to those numbers and that data?
I think it's a combination of all those. It's a context of rural living. We are often more crowded. We're closer to the oven and the stove and the open flame. We are also closer to the iron. We are also closer to the chemicals because we have much more crowded spaces. And lastly, in the developing countries or middle or lower income countries, basically what happens is that we have a lot of electrical issues where the wiring are probably not up to standard and people are tapping each other's electricity. So we have a lot of electrical fires that just erupts out of the just, improper wiring that also is closer to the people than in most of the developing countries where they have much more stricter codes. So it's a combination of a lot of things. And then after we get burned, we also don't have a lot of burn centers. In some big countries, perhaps there's only one burn center. And then the access, how you get there, also becomes prohibitive. If you live in a village and the only burn center is in the capital city, I mean, why would you drive or find a public transport all the way to the city when you can choose to treat it at home? So some of these issues are prohibitive.
But on the positive is the fact that there's been great medical innovation, right, when it comes to the treatment of burns, especially when we're thinking the more intense burns, the more higher leveled burns.
Exactly. There's a lot of medical innovation. Basically, the deeper the burn, the more likely you're going to need surgery. So we have to excise it and then replace it. Now, the replacement ultimately has to be your own skin, but we can temporarily use temporary coverage. And so now we have a lot of things, we have things called enzymatics that usually does a lot of the debriding for us. There's a lot of new ointments and creams on the market. Even with the temporary coverage, now you can use tilapia skin, you can use cadaveric skin, there's all kinds of new and non-biological skin coverage that we use temporary. Those only last for about 14 days. And what we do is we use that to ensure that your own skin, regenerates, because the only skin that the body would recognize is self. So if I use someone else's skin or a cadaver skin, the body will recognize it as foreign, and it doesn't last. It can only last for about 7 days to 14 days max. Then we have to remove it and replace it. So we only use those as temporary coverage. And even the method in which we excise has come through a lot. We have lasers now, and we have different types of excision equipment that really does a much better and smoother job for us. And then post-burn, in terms of the scarification, the medicines we use to prevent the scars, how we treat it, there's a lot of constant innovation happening.
I guess, that's where we got to leave it on the positive note, at very least, that there's been some medical technological advancements in treating burns. And of course, the advice for the afternoon is, should you encounter a burn, particularly a thermal burn, is to run that room temperature water until that sort of burn subsides, and then assess. Dr. Grace, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it, you carving out some time this afternoon to be in conversation with us. That is where we leave it for today, myself and my team. We will see you tomorrow. Ashraf is standing by with the National Pulse, and of course they'll be unpacking all things top of the political, social, and economic agenda with you this afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Inshallah, God willing, we do it again.
Marawai, why is the boss of breaking down spreadsheets now on the side of the road breaking down in a broken down car? Marawai, why aren't you insured with Santam, the leading short-term insurer that gives you emergency roadside assistance and home drive services when you need them most? To switch, call 0860 444 or SMS cover to 36101. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP.